Hello, welcome to the Security Update with me, Hamse Daabjeerin. In this program, we will be covering for you the latest stories that matter security in the African countries from West to Horn of Africa. Ahead of the program, former Hirshabelle state president to file lawsuit against troops deployed in Peledwene. A roadside palm kills 13 people in Kenya. TBLF issues preconditions for ceasefire. Heavy gunfire near the government palace of Guinea-Bissau. Welcome to our program. Former Hirshabelle State President of Somalia, Mohamed Abdi pledged to file a lawsuit against the deployed Turkish training troops Gorgor in Peledwene a few days after the Prime Minister ordered the troops to withdraw from the region and pack to their barracks. The former Hirshabelle state leader, Mohamed Abdi said that he will file a lawsuit against the deployment of elite Turkish trained special forces in Peledwene. Ware pointed out that Turkish trained Gorgor and Harmat soldiers are being deployed to take part in political parties contrary to the purpose of their training. He stated he will submit a formal complaint to the Turkish government, which trains these troops, and will demand that they reevaluate the security policy in Somalia. He advised the troops not to be deployed in Peledwene, which has raised serious concerns among lawmakers and politicians from the Hiran region. He called on Somali Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble and Hirshabelle President Ali Goulawe to stand up against the threat posed by the deployed soldiers being used in the clashes in Peledwene. On Thursday, Somalia's cabinet, led by Prime Minister Roble, opposed the deployment of elite Turkish trained special forces in Peledwene and ordered their immediate withdrawal. 13 people died when a minibus was destroyed by roadside palm during an ambush by armed men in northeastern Kenya near the border with Somalia. The assailants opened fire on the 14-seater vehicle after it ran over the explosive device about 8 kilometers from the town of Mandera. Kenya police say one suspect has been arrested after an improvised explosive device killed at least 13 passengers and injured others in a bus traveling in northeast Kenya near the border with Somalia. Kenya police in northeast Mandera County say the 14-seat bus was heading to Mandera town early Monday when it drove over the roadside palm. Kenyan media reports cited witnesses saying they heard gunfire after the deadly explosion. No group immediately claimed responsibility for the attack. Suspicion is expected to fall on the Al-Shabaab group. The group has in the past launched several cross-border attacks on security forces and public transportation in Kenya. The World Food Programme says nearly 40% of people in Ethiopia's Tigray are suffering an extreme lack of food in the face of an extended de facto blockade of the war-hit region. The United Nations Food Security disclosed that families are exhausting all means to feed themselves, with 3/4 of the population using extreme coping strategies to survive.
The World Food Programme, WFP, says nearly 40% of people in Ethiopia's Tigray are suffering an extreme lack of food in the face of an extended de facto blockade of the war-hit region. The United Nations Food Agency disclosed that families are exhausting all means to feed themselves, with 3/4 of the population using extreme coping strategies to survive. The latest revelation in Tigray comes as humanitarian groups are forced to increasingly curtail activities because of fuel and supply shortages, with aid having to be delivered by foot. Tigray's Health Bureau this week reported that nearly 1,500 people died of malnutrition in just part of the region over a 4-month period last year, including more than 350 children. However, the Ethiopia's foreign ministry said it was working with 8 partners to facilitate daily cargo flights to Tigray to transport much-needed medicines and supply. Fresh fighting in northern Ethiopia, which has been gripped by deadly conflict for almost 15 months, is also limiting avenues for getting in aid. Ethiopia's war broke out in November 2020, following months of mounting tensions between Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's government and the Tigray People's Liberation Front (TPLF), the former governing party of Tigray, which once dominated national politics. Kamil Sadiq, CBA TV.
Dozens of militia members have been sentenced to death in the Democratic Republic of Congo for their involvement in the murder of two UN experts. Swedish-Chilean Saida Catalan and American Michael Sharp were abducted and killed in the Kasai region in 2017. A military court in the Democratic Republic of Congo has sentenced 51 people to death, several in absentia, in a mass trial over the 2017 murder of two United Nations experts in a troubled central region. Capital punishment is frequently pronounced in murder cases in DRC, but is routinely commuted to life imprisonment since the country declared a moratorium on executions in 2003. Dozens of people have been on trial for more than 4 years over the killing statute diplomats and the aid community, although key questions about the evil side remain unanswered. Saida Catalan, a Swedish, and Michael Sharp, an American, were investigating violence between government forces and armed groups in the central Kasai region in March 2017, when they were stopped along the road by armed men, marched into a field and killed. Their bodies were found in a village on March 28, 2017, 16 days after they went missing. Congolese officials have blamed the killings of the Kamuina Sabo armed group. Clashes between the DRC's army and fighters of the terror group M23 have resulted in forced displacement since the beginning of this week. Inhabitants from 6 villages in the Democratic Republic of Congo's east, including Bukima, Yesesi, and Ruhanga, have filed clashes between the Congolese army and M23. But we will be back after the short break.
Making documentaries is one of the most creative craft and challenging endeavors you can be involved in. It is an effective strategy to inform, persuade, educate, defend the perspective, and shed light on various issues, policies, and activities. At CBA TV, documentary production is our forte. We capture every TikTok detail of events in highest resolution to tell the story you care about, from politics to human hunger, research-based content, educative and informative. We also help you project your story in a dynamic perspective that attracts the world views of the target audience, as there is no better or more powerful way to place the organization's values and achievements than to make an excellent documentary film. No doubt, our strength lies in these ventures, and we pride in many award-winning documentaries which have been earning accolades across Africa and beyond. Let's tell your story.
Welcome back to our program. Clashes between the DRC's army and fighters of the terror group M23 have resulted in forced displacements since the beginning of this week. Inhabitants from 6 villages in the Democratic Republic of Congo's east, including Bukima, Yesesi, and Ruhanga, have fled clashes between the Congolese army and M23.
Since the beginning of this week, inhabitants from 6 villages in the Democratic Republic of Congo's east, including Bukima, Nyesisi, and Ruhanga, have fled clashes between the Congolese army and M23. On Tuesday, a fresh attack carried out by the March 23rd movement, or M23, targeted a Congolese army position in the territory of Rutshuru, just north of the city of Goma in eastern Congo. Just like an estimated 2,000 people, Sarah Kasigwa was left homeless and traumatized. We saw several dead people. I lost my children and my husband in the chaos, and I've been left with nothing. We are sleeping here in this school on the ground. There is just cement, no blanket. We suffer a lot. Following the attack, MONUSCO blue helmets were deployed on Friday. The incident took place in the vicinity of Virunga National Park, a UNESCO heritage site renowned for its large gorilla population. The M23, which also calls itself the Revolutionary Army of Congo, is a former rebellion group of Congolese previously backed by neighboring states.
As the UN calls for cessation of hostilities in Ethiopia, the leader of Tigray People's Liberation Front TPLF has said he has been in talks with government of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed in Addis Ababa in what appears to be a positive gesture from the parties to end the conflict.
United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres on Tuesday called for an immediate cessation of hostilities in Ethiopia to observe the Olympic truce. The cessation of hostilities can allow for effective humanitarian access and relief to all affected populations throughout Ethiopia and help pave the way to a much-needed inclusive national dialogue, he said in a press encounter before his trip to Beijing for the opening of the Games. Prior to the outbreak of the Tigray conflict, the TPLF under Daabjeerin was the ruling party in the northern Tigray region, but a law enforcement operation that followed a TPLF attack on the federal army based in Tigray stripped the now rebel group from its ruling party status, with the federal parliament designating it as a terrorist organization. Since then, Daabjeerin has been fighting the government in Addis Ababa in a bid to remove Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed from power, demanding at some point that the federal army surrender to TPLF, but a forceful response by the federal army resulted in the defeat of the TPLF from Afar and Amhara regions back into Tigray. Daabjeerin revealed that they have been in informal talks with the Ethiopian federal government and said that there has emerged an improvement in the way they exchange messages but gave preconditions before formal talks for cessation begin.
The government of Guinea-Bissau was filled with heavy tension on Tuesday afternoon. The area around the airport was also filled with the people fleeing the scene. Market is emptied and banks closed. Numerous military vehicles loaded with soldiers drove through to the streets. The government palace where President Omar Sissoco and Prime Minister Nuno Gomes were supposed to meet with ministers was surrounded by heavily armed men. The presence of the military around the government palace not far from the airport brought a lot of tension. The area around the airport was also filled with people fleeing the scene. Markets emptied and banks closed. Numerous military vehicles loaded with soldiers drove through the streets. Guinea-Bissau, a small country of about 2 million people bordering Senegal and Guinea, is no stranger to political coups. Since its independence from Portugal in 1974, after a long war of liberation, it has seen 4 coups, a string of attempted coups, and cessation of government. Since 2014, it has moved towards a return to constitutional order, which has not prevented it from repeated turbulence, but without violence. The country suffers from endemic corruption. It is also considered a hub for cocaine trafficking between Latin America and Europe. Since the beginning of 2020, Omar Sissoco, a former general, has been the head of state following a presidential election whose result is still disputed by the African Party for the Independence of Guinea and Cape Verde, the dominant party since independence. And with that story of the gunfire near the government palace of Guinea-Bissau, we'll wrap up our program for this time. Thank you very much for being with us. This is me, Hamse Daabjeerin.